So I think we're just crack on and we'll let people in as they arrive. It's 6 o'clock in the UK. I think Eastern Standard Time it's now 2 p.m. and I think where Kent is it's around 11 a.m. And so we know we've got people from around the world here. The usual format of these events is I'll ask Kent some questions and get him talking. And then with the chat is open for your questions. And I've got Elaine. Elaine, can you just give everyone a quick wave? Elaine is one of our contributors to the magazine. She writes the history column, and she's also obviously a very accomplished swimmer in her own right. And I think you swam Scar in 2022.
22. Finally, I had signed up in 2020, but then the pandemic happened, and so I finally got my chance to
Okay.
go in 22, and it was awesome.
So I've asked Elaine to monitor the chat for us so any questions pop in the chat. And we are recording the video, and it's up to you whether you want to have your video cameras on or off. We we like to see you, but if you don't want your face recorded, then feel free to turn off your camera. And if you can, please leave your microphones on mute, so that we don't get too much background noise.
Alan, can you please mute yourself? Sorry.
You just muted me.
I did. Sorry, I was trying to mute him. There we go. He's should be muted now. Sorry.
Okay, there's a couple more people that I'm just letting in. And let's crack on. So I'm absolutely delighted to have Ken with us this morning, whatever your time zone. Ken, please give everyone a quick wave.
Thank you, Simon.
We've never actually met, but we've known each other via email for almost since I started the magazine, which was 2011. I think your first edition was around the same time, 2012, something like that.
2012 is when I took a group out to kind of scout it and see if it could work.
Yeah. And over the years, Kent's promoted his the Scar Swim in Outdoor Swimmer magazine, or H Open as it was originally. And we've sent magazines over for the swimmers. So we've had a nice little long distance relationship going on.
Yes.
Just trying to support each other and support the world of swimming. So that's how it goes. Ken, let's just go straight into some questions. What pulled you into the world of marathon swimming?
I had been a sprinter my whole life. And our family would vacation to San Diego. So my mom would challenge me as a little guy to go out and swim across the bay and touch a boat and then swim back to shore. And of course, at the age of 5 or 6, what's under the water is very scary. And so my love probably started right there. And then after going to school in San Diego and law school in Oregon, I trained with Ron Johnson, who was the Mexican national Olympic team coach. And he was also ASU's coach, Arizona State University. And he started just thinking, hey, Kent, there's a swim over in Seal Beach. It's 10 miles. I think you can do it. And as I got slower as a sprinter, I took more interest in going long distance, that I wasn't so concerned with the time, but just more of the experience. So that's where it started. And then, you start with the 5K or the La Jolla Rough Water. The Gatorman was a favorite of mine. I love that swim. I think it went for like 99 years. And then Seal Beach had the 10 miler. And then you go up to San Francisco, and now you're getting a taste of the cold water. And so that's a whole different experience. But it's I would say a lifelong, relationship with the open water.
So out of all the marathon swims you've done, what would be your favorite apart from Scar, obviously?
Oh boy, my favorite. That's really hard. You know what? I really enjoyed the English Channel because it was my last swim of the Triple Crown. My wife was on the boat, and it was just a fantastic day. Um, uh, I had an Irish swimmer, uh, Anna Marie, who was introduced to me by Ned Dennison, and she was on the boat. And just culturally, it was cool, and it was sunny, and the tides were great. And so when I hit France, that was a highlight for me.
Right. It sounds like you had a perfect day for it. No.
I Yeah, I really did. I mean, I looked back at the weather. It's like, hey, there's this one great sunny day. I was like, whoa, August 1st of 2013. It was great. So yeah.
And so, what do you love about marathon swimming?
I guess in pool swimming, it's competitive, and I've always been competitive in life, and the metrics of it, how far have you swam, how fast have you swam, and then I'm not going to say evolve because that's still a lot of fun for a lot of people, but I really took an interest in driving up to the lake and going for a swim and just saying, okay, I'm here and there's water between me and that point, and I want to get there. And that adventure just became kind of an addiction for me. And you and I have spoken about wild swims, and it didn't really matter to me how far I went. I didn't time these swims. It was just more about the experience. Then when I started swimming with others, it was more of a swimming community instead of, hey, I'm going to beat that guy, or. So it just kind of organically, it's kind of where I evolved to. Is I enjoy swimming with people.
So is it that this combination of adventure and community and supporting each other to challenge yourself, I guess. Uh,
Yeah, well, it's a strong community. I mean, these swimmers that go to Vermont, swim the Kingdom Swim, and go to Chattanooga and swim the Suck, and I'm sure it's same in the UK. You start to see the same people, and you catch up with them. And kind of the unique thing about Scars, it's 4 days, and there's a lot of waiting around, and it's remote. And when we got started, there weren't cell phone towers. And so you were really isolated. And then to get to places, there were dirt roads, and those dirt roads are quite frankly, are dangerous.
yeah,
And so it was the whole experience. And
yeah. Okay, so
if I
so,
could,
so let's get onto Scar then, and maybe talk a little bit about your inspiration for Scar. Maybe bringing in I know, is it bringing in those bits of adventure and community that you're talking about in your love of marathon swimming? Is that what you wanted to put into Scar and make that available for other people? What's this sort of inspiration?
well, I was just grateful for the people that has helped me accomplish what I accomplished. I mean, when I applied to the Manhattan Island Marathon Swim, that's what 40 bridges used to be. I mean, it was a very detailed application, and I had to write an essay of why I wanted to swim it. And it was so detailed. Um, and I was impressed by that. And then when I wanted to swim Catalina, I was called by Penny Dean, who's, a hero in the open water swim community. And then following her, Tina Neal called me, and she's, under the radar and a amazing swimmer. And I just felt like, wow, I'm meeting people that I really admire and aspire to be like, and it took off from there. And I continue to meet people that inspire me and that I'm glad that I can meet. And I think people that come to SCAR have uh, that same feeling. So to me, it started with gratitude. I wanted to give back. I thought Arizona was a great place to swim, a place I've taken for granted because I was born here. And then every year when I go out to these lakes, it's like, wow, if I can share this with others and we can do this, together as a swim community, um, that's great. That's very fulfilling.
I'm sure most people are familiar what Scar is, but maybe could you give the sort of the 2 minute elevator pitch for Scar just to remind everybody what it involves, um, what does it cover? What do you have to do to be a Scar swimmer?
Well, it's a large commitment because it's not just one marathon swim; it's four connected, a series of swims. If you were a droplet of water, you would flow right down the river. Scar is a series of reservoirs. These reservoirs are right around the 100-year mark, maybe a little bit over. So They haven't been around a super long time. Um, and you have to physically have done something. It's not a swim you register for, you apply to swim it. Um, I review those, sometimes with a committee, sometimes not. I'm selective. I want to see that people have experience and have at least gone out and done a 10K swim, and that they've experienced the cold water. But I'm not afraid to take people that are entering into it. But I want to see something that shows me that they're ready. Because I'll have some people apply and they're just, it's just a winger. Hey, I've done 42 Ironmans. I want to come out. And like, well, that's great. You did 2.6 miles. This is a little different. And we don't wear wetsuits. Hopefully, I do have a guy wearing a wetsuit this year. He's going to do the London, uh, you know, bike the UK to Dover, swim the English Channel, and then run to the Eiffel Tower, I think. So he's going to wear a wetsuit, and you have to have the right mental state. I think there's so much time you're disconnected. Open water swimming is a sensory deprivation experience, and it's a long meditation, the way I look at it. And 4 days of that, I mean, you come out kind of like a wet monk. I mean, you're just, it's, so you got to be physically ready. You got to be mentally ready. And you got to have the right attitude. You've got to have the right vibe.
I'm going to come back to you on attitude in a minute, because I saw that there's something on your website that was quite interesting on that. But I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about how you got the event going. I mean, I don't know how easy it is to organize something like that in the US. You probably need permissions to access the land. You probably need permission to be in the water, and then you've got the logistics of a load of swimmers swimming at a different speed. You've got a night swim involved. I mean, tell us a little bit about how you got it started in the first place, and the logistics of making it happen each year.
So, yeah, I recruited some of the best swimmers I knew. Uh, um, there were a couple of local swimmers um, that much faster than me, and long distance swimmers, and I asked them if they would assist me. David Barra, who had been heavily involved in New York, and he's an international, Hall of Fame swimmer. He came out with a friend, Janet Harris. Another female, younger swimmer than me, Meg Rich, came along, and I wanted to make it fun. And I kind of conceived of the idea at a brewery, and so I got these growlers I got 8 growlers because there were 8 of us. And I had a friend of mine have them engraved with a logo, and all of that was fun. I could make a logo, and I got these 8 guys together. And after we did a couple of swims, I went and had coffee with David Barr and Janet, and knowing that David swam all over and he was very well regarded, still very well regarded, said, "Hey, this is something this is cool. Like, you've really got something special here." And I did, and I had, fortunately, friends that would jump in and would have as much fun as I was having with it. And they've continued to have fun. At least last time I checked, they were having fun. And so that's kind of how I started. But I'm learning something new every year. I mean, I'm into my 13th, 14th year. And just last year, I have a different way of transporting the kayaks to the start, which is logistically very challenging. And we start towing them. And so it took me a decade to figure that out. And I wish I'd learned that sooner, but so it's a learning curve. And, I've made mistakes, that I've also made decisions that were tough decisions, that, a point where I thought, okay, now you are a race director. Like, this is the real deal. Like, it's a dangerous sport when it comes right down to it. It's not like a long marathon run where you can sit down if you get tired. If you have a problem on the water and you go under, you're difficult to find. So
Yeah,
that's always in the back of my mind.
yes, no, obviously safety has to be a priority. But let's say someone on this call signed up or applied, and you accepted them onto SCAR, say for 2026. What would they go through, and what would they experience when they arrived in Arizona? and how would they experience
Uh,
the day to day of the challenge of the swim?
so so we start with there's a warm up swim that I'm not part of because I'm busy on the lake putting kayaks to the back of the lake. So they would get there and they'd go to this practice swim, and then we call it the Patty swim. Patty Herman is a longtime supporter of SCAR, and I consider a personal friend. And they do a practice swimming just to shake the cobwebs off. You know, some people have traveled miles and miles and around the United States to get here. So it's a great way to meet other people. That night, I used to host a party at a country club. And then with COVID and those changes, I decided just I'm going to do this in my backyard. And so we put tables out and we serve Italian food, and that's really the beginning and really the only time we have an event. You know, a lot of events are you do the swim and then it's like, okay, we're going to give the awards and the top guy is, and there's people get on there. But they get in line. It's not circular, it's point to point for the first three swims. So logistically, that's tough. When I say, hey, let's get to the dock at 7 o'clock, they might not get on a boat till 8. They might not get to the back of the lake till 8:30 or 9. And then even when they get to the back of the lake, that's just a staging beach. And so then I take them, in a pontoon boat, past signs that say danger, don't go any further, and oh, danger, and you have to navigate those rocks. And then they get to a point, they might get in the water by 9:30.
Mm-hmm.
So unlike some events when you say, hey, we're starting at 9 o'clock, you get there at 8:30, you got a little half-hour warm-up and you go. This is all you're going to do all day. So meet somebody, talk to somebody. You're going to be sitting around, and as frustrating as that can be. I mean, I'm the guy that at the grocery store, I get uh, kind of rushed if one person's in front of me, but this just takes the temperature down, and uh, it's a side benefit that's been very positive.
Yeah.
They finish that first day, and I don't have anything planned for them, and they come out to Canyon Lake the second day. This I would consider the most beautiful swim. They kind of get the flow of how I run things. We get the first wave out. We're getting on boats. We're going to the back of the lake. It's a long journey. It's 9 miles on the water. And we've got to get the equipment out there. So I'm moving like over 100 people. I'm moving at least 50 kayaks and over a great distance. And everybody wants to swim right now, and they're timing their feeds. They might, and then they get in there and they realize, wow, this is really something else. Like, I can't believe that I'm in this environment. And I encourage people like, hey, at one point, just stop swimming, take your goggles off and look around and just, feel how lucky you are.
Yeah.
Apache's the third day, really very unpredictable. As a swim, we've had our most difficult swims on that lake, although each swim poses its own complete hazards. But it's long and it can get windy, and the wind can help you or it can hurt you. Swimmers aren't so much affected by the wind. I mean, they are, but the kayaks I have, they're tough to fight that wind. If you have a 20-mile-per-hour headwind, that's tough. And those that finish it are just ecstatic. And it is an accomplishment. And my agreement with Speedo is that those that finish Apache get a black cap. And so the black cap kind of is a cool thing. And then Roosevelt's I just consider that the gratitude swim. That's the night swim. I could have done it during the day, but because I see these series of swims as preparation for channel swims, and I know Catalina starts at night, you can start the English Channel at night. There's people that even start, I think, Manhattan now in the evening if they're going to do a double. So that night swimming, it made me nervous as an organizer just because of what you can't see. Like it's scary because I'm responsible for these people. But you throw the glow sticks on the kayaks, you throw the end of the event in, it's ecstatic. Initially, I had that from point to point as well, but now I have it more in a large 10K triangle. which is much, much better. I should have done it right from the beginning, because now I have like an ending point where people can say goodbye and, give each other a hug. And but that's it. Like, it's at night. It's about, 10 p.m. It could be 11 p.m.
Yeah.
And they get out, they dry off, they say goodbye, and they get in their car, and that's it. And so it's initially that was a little bit like weird. It's like, gosh, you should have a like really big pig roast at the end. It's like, well, we're really everyone's really tired. We've done a lot together, um, and
Yeah.
then we get them back. We get them back the next year. I got a lot of repeat swimmers, which is
Yeah.
nice.
Okay. So what would and just like glancing at my other screen for my questions. So what would you say is your most memorable in a positive way? Because I've your most memorable positive experience of running Scar.
Um, hmm. A swimmer named Kathy Harrington swam Apache, and that was pretty cool. That was big. She had tried it several years.
Hmm.
She had her daughter paddling for her, and when she made it, it was cool. It was really, really touching.
Yeah. So something about enabling the success, enabling other people to achieve something like
Right,
that. It's
right.
that's a big
Yeah.
thing for you.
Well,
Yeah.
it's super rewarding, and they're super, they're proud of themselves. They're proud of their paddler. I think they reach a point where they realize this is not an individual sport. They're very dependent on their paddler for their
Mhm.
eyes and ears, and their food, and somebody to talk to, and um, almost like a psychologist on the water. And so I think when they finish that, they have that real sense of community.
Mm.
And it happens a lot. Like, I'm using Kathy Harrington as an example because that's what popped into my mind. But there's, all of them that do it. It's
Yeah.
great.
Okay. And then as an organizer, I mean, as a participant in events, we I'm a more participant than an organizer. So, you know, we're just swimming along, minding our own business, enjoying the view, getting into the flow. But I mean, as an organizer, I mean, tell us about a time when you've been absolutely scrambling behind the scenes just to keep the show on the road, where the swimmers might have been completely oblivious to what's going on, and
Oh, well, that is all the time. Like, I've had so many moments where I'm just like, I just can't believe this is happening. I mean, we arrived day one for Saguaro, and we have a dock that we launched to get to the back of the lake. And the dock was closed, and it was closed because they were doing a search and rescue for a dead body. So that was challenging. At Apache, when they were having some financial difficulties, it's been sold since then. I got down to the dock. I've got 100 people behind me. I'm supposed to meet the guy that is going to rent me all the boats that I've told would be there, at least 8 of them. And he says, "Yeah, I've got one boat." Well, it's a 9-mile drive to the start. I've got 100 people. Fortunately, I knew the owner of the property, and I said, "I'm going to need some help." And she had her local friends come together and get down there, and we got it done. And
Mm.
I remember another race director was there, Phil, from the Kingdom Swim in Vermont.
Yeah.
And he was just shaking his head. He's just like, this is outrageously unbelievable. But we did it. We made it, and I didn't have any blowback. Like, swimmers weren't like, "I can't believe this isn't organized." And like, I really felt supported by the swimmers that were there, and that was comforting.
Yeah. Okay. This is sort of the final question from me, the ones that I pre-prepared. I'm going to move on to some questions that people have sent in. And just could you talk about, and this is really for my benefit, for everyone here, really, about the type of experience, and I know you hinted a little bit about this at the beginning, experience and ability that you're looking for in people to be able to complete SCAR. And then also talk a little bit about temperament. I know this is the bit where on your website you said you don't want any prima donnas or um, I can't remember how you can't have anyone that's too precious on the swim.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us
Well,
a little bit about that, about what you're looking for.
yeah, well, a lot of it's experience, like where have they swam? what they write down is the starting point for me. But I also take a look at the long swimmer database that the Marathon Swimmers Federation has, and see where they've been. If swim directors talk, we know there are certain swimmers that are kind of handled with care swimmers, and so I'm only as good as like my slowest moving piece, and I shouldn't even say slowest, but who's going to cause me the most difficulty, and I try and weed those out, to be quite honest. I mean, it's just uh, I just want it to be really, I just want it to be fun. And so if I get the feeling that they're fun, and I assume they're fun, then they're in. I like to see some cold water experience. It is cold. I think you have to be acclimated. It's nothing that you can, some of the best guys from Hawaii come over and swim, and it's cold for them. It's hard for them to find cold water. But it's not, I also see it as, if they come out and swim Roosevelt, that's a 10K, that's an entry level swim, but it's also at night. So it's, the swims are going to push anybody that comes, and then to do them in a series is, that's a lot. It's a lot of miles of swimming.
Yeah.
I don't know what their mental state is. I do leave a section in the application for, hey, do you have any notes for the race director? And I'll get a lot of funny stuff. And so if I get something funny, I'm like, well, this guy has a sense of humor. I like that, like that's the guy that I want. And then, but I can tell, like, months before the event, like, I know who my HWC, like my handle with care swimmers, are going to be. And so.
Okay. All right. And just, I think it's popped up in the chat a couple of times. A couple of people are asking about temperature, and you say you're saying it's cold. And I guess there's quite a lot of variability through the lakes, but what is the sort of range that people are looking for?
Well, so at the starting point of each swim, except Roosevelt, you're at the base of the reservoir that's upstream. So the water being released into that start is that upper lake's coldest water, and that can dip below 60. And some people are going to say 52. I've never seen it at 52. Everyone reads their temperature gauges differently. My demographic, there's some older swimmers, so I'm not even sure they can even read the temperature gauge. There might be fudging, but the start can be cold. And I tell people that so that they know when they're a mile into it, and as the sun rises, as the day goes on and the sun gets into the canyon, that they will warm up. And so that mental tip that you can cling to and use to power yourself through, very chilly water.
Yeah.
But I think, from when I started in 2012 to now, it's warmed up a little bit, and I don't want a warm swim, like, the English Channel rules, and to do the 6-hour qualifying. I really wanted to position it that way. We're not even cold enough to do a 6-hour qualifying. But I thought if the temperatures continue to warm, I will move the swim so that we do have cold water, because that's important. It's important to me as a training swim for channels.
Okay, I'm going to just jump to some of the questions that have come in, and I think people are asking, both is your experience as a race organizer and your experience as a swimmer here. So, so first one is from Carl. I don't know if Carl is on the course somewhere. He's asking advice for distance swimming when he does shift work, and so he finds following a a plan that you might, a standard plan, quite difficult because of his shifts changing, and also struggle not being able to rest properly because he's working shifts. Let me see that, just the end of the question there. It's other than being sensible and trying to, approach it practically. I mean, is there anything else? Have you come across anything, spoken to anybody who's done that and trained while working shifts?
It's a matter of consistency. There are some people that are morning swimmers. I was always a morning swimmer. how far I swam mattered less to me than how consistent I was in my swimming. So if I were working shifts, I would try and say, hey, if I'm working a morning shift, what's my nighttime routine going to be? And who am I going to swim with? Because I think it's important to say, hey, I'm going to meet you there, whether it's at the pool or the open water, and say, we're going to meet and we're going to swim, and then you're committed. And so I think it's that commitment and consistency that prepares people the best for long distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you find having a training partner is a big boost to commitment.
Well, I just like it. I mean, for me, it's a social swim. I can't wait till we do a kick set and I can just like chat with who you know, swimming to me is part of it. It's a vehicle for me to have a great time.
Yeah.
And there's those that come out, they want to, they're going to swim as fast as they can. And that's great too. And I tell everybody, hey, whatever you come out here, this is your race. This is your swim. This isn't mine. This is just, I'm creating an opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Okay. This related question, if you're training for a long swim, you need to keep, well, you probably want to increase the distances you do in training, which obviously starts to take more and more time. So how do you find a balance between work and social life and swimming? And I think you may have answered this already in saying that swimming is kind of is where you connect with other people, and it's a part of your social life. But maybe you want to talk a little bit about how you find that balance in life, because I think you've got a busy job as well, don't you?
I do, but I'll tell you, balance is swimming too much can be out of balance as well. And when you and I were talking earlier, I reached a point where my wife and my kids are like, "Hey, is there ever going to be a family vacation we take where we're not standing on the beach clapping for you?" And so that balance is important, and I think it can be an easy trap to fall into just this, I'm going to swim all the time and that's all I care about. And I'm too tired to do anything after I do it. And, you know, it can be a trait that's people can fall into when they're ultra athletes. But the best athletes I've seen have a balance, and it might involve just going for a hike. It might be going for a walk. It might be rowing a boat. It might be sailing or fishing or doing puzzles. But yeah, if you just swim all the time, you're kind of a one-dimensional bore.
Okay, so you're it sounds like you're saying that um perhaps you don't need um to put in as many hours of training as some people might think they need to.
Well,
You'd be better off cutting down the swimming a little bit and having a more rounded approach to life.
yeah.
Um,
Now, keep in mind, I'm a sprinter, and sprinters have a reputation. And but the guys that I swam with in high school, I'm still swimming, and some of those guys that were going the deep yards are not. And I'm glad that I'm still with it, and I think that you can overtrain. I think that can be a tendency that's unfortunate because it's such a wonderful sport. And if you overtrain and you to the point of injury and you can't come back to it, that's a real loss. And so I'd rather swim less and have fun than swim a ton and pound my chest because I've swam the fastest or I swam the farthest.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't even going to time score. I wasn't even going to put a watch clock on it because I thought that's what's it about. But it is something. People do like metrics and they do want to see where they're at. And even the distances that I post, I mean, those are that was Google Earth when it first came out, and I'm just using a mouse trying to figure it out. And so people say, "Hey, you said this was 9 miles, and I got 7 miles." And I'm like, "I don't know what to tell you, man. Did you have a good time?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, then we're on the same page."
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. Um, okay, simple question here, but I'm sure the answer isn't so straightforward. What is your best advice for a successful scar swim?
Number one, it's attitude. You have to let things come to you. You have to have complete confidence in yourself. You have to know your paddler. how to communicate with them, um, how you're going to feed. But when you boil it down, it's really simple. You're swimming from point A to point B. It's going to be a long time. You're going to need to eat periodically. You're going to need to have water. And you're going to have that attitude that I'm not getting out. I am all in. This is what I'm doing. I have nothing to do today. I have nothing to do tomorrow. I may not even get cell phone service, so I might as well stay here and swim. And it's not that you have to swim or, oh, I've got to do these miles. It's that you get to, you know, you have this opportunity. You've put yourself in the position to do it. You've got the time, unfortunately, the money. It's an expensive sport. And you've trained and, physically, and hopefully, and an aspect I'm kind of focusing on this year is like the mental side of it. Like I'm interested in that for a variety of reasons, because it goes beyond swimming, but,
Okay, you just mentioned
that's it.
something there that I feel I should have asked you earlier when we were talking about the practicality and the logistics about the working in partnership with your kayaker. And how does that work? When someone applies to do the swim, do they apply with a kayaker already, or do you match
I
people up, or how does that? Do you have a dating service, or how does
Right.
that work?
Funny you say that, but yes, I do. I part of the application is, do you have a paddler? And the application is 6 months before the swim, so people don't always know what's going to be out there and who can commit. And so I understand that. So I will get some applications that say, to be determined. Other people, they know it. Like when I applied to swims, I always knew my wife is going to paddle. That's what we do. We do it together, and that was a benefit that I had and that I'm super appreciative of. For international swimmers that are traveling, that's something that I try and assist them with. Typically, if they're an international swimmer, they have a crew that they're very comfortable with. They're coming either with their family or their spouse or a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And but if someone's like, hey, I lost my paddler, they went down, I'll do my best to find somebody. I have some friends that will get involved and do it, but I don't have 50 friends taking 4 days off to paddle for everybody. So as far as the dating service, I make the introduction. I say, hey, you guys chat, figure it out. And if it's a match, let me know, and I'll put pen to paper.
Yeah.
But it's so important. Like that's the me thing with swimming is, it's a lot about the paddler and how they're doing, because they've got to eat, they've got to feed. What are they thinking about for 8 hours on the lake? Are they comfortable? Did they bring a pad? I mean, I rent kayaks, but the pad is terrible. So that, to have a cushiony pad to sit down that long, it's important. And, I think this event will let swimmers experience, okay, hey, I need to tell this paddler that I want you right off my shoulder. Like when I turn to breathe, I want to see you eye to eye. I don't want to be lifting my head. I don't want you 10, 20 yards ahead of me. That's terrible. I have to lift up my head. My hips drop. Now I'm slow. So those conversations are important.
Mm. Okay. And question your personal training now. How do you manage your own training around your job, around organizing an event? Then how do you keep focused when you're doing your longer swims?
So I've been out of the water for a little bit. I was experiencing a tinge of pain where I was having even trouble holding a glass of water, uh, horizontally from my body. And so I started hiking. And but when I swam, the way I made time for it was a commitment in the morning, and I showed up religiously. It was 5 to 6 days a week, and our team, Mesa Aquatics, the master's program there, was excellent, and they even had a Sunday swim. And so, if you want to go 7 days a week, if you want to swim morning, afternoon, and night, Paul and Laura Smith from Mesa Aquatics, they did an excellent job. And so I had a lot of opportunities, and I would read about people in New York that would have limited opportunities, and the public pools are not always open and they're not always convenient. And I will tell you, Arizona, particularly in Mesa where I live, we have excellent facilities. I mean, Michael Phelps moved here, and if that's any you know.
You haven't signed him up yet, though.
No, no, he's a busy guy. You know who I'd love to get out here, and who I think about. I actually might just throw something out to him. Um, uh, Hall. His house burned down. The sprinter Gary Hall
Oh yeah.
Jr.
Mm,
and lost his home. And uh,
yeah.
I see his vibe would be great to have here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe he sees this and gets in contact with you. Two more questions that people previously sent in. Then we'll move to anything that's come up on the chat. Um, so on these multi-day swims, what's the best way to rest and recover and get yourself ready for the next day?
I think people rest and recover differently, but certainly you don't want to, you know, uh, drink caffeine going into the night. I've been following my own sleep pattern, so sleep is important. If you think it's going to be noisy, maybe earplugs or something to cover your eyes at night. Uh, um, I do have a masseuse that comes and people book with her. It's not like, okay, I've got this time slot because we don't know when people are going to finish their swim, but that's available. Uh, I think light stretching. I'm not, people eat differently. Everyone has these different nutritional habits. So, and they're going to want to rest. They're going to want to take it down a notch and go back to where they are, where they're staying and chill out. That desire to like, hey, let's go out, let's go check out the new craft beer bars that are in this area or the food, which is what I love to do. Like, I love to go to a swim and see where they eat here. Like, if you're down south, like, oh, these are grits. This is great.
Yeah.
Um, but just taking it easy and eating the right stuff and,
Yeah.
going slow, like a pause. And I think that's great. Like if they were, and that's why I'm not thrilled about the new cell phone towers near Apache, because now people can get on their phone and read the news and grind and get all twisted. And
Uh,
like it's just read a book that you enjoy, listen to music that you enjoy.
yeah. Okay. And then the final question that's been pre-asked was around training for the cold. Uh, you like the idea of holding the swim early in the season because you want the cold. You want people to have an opportunity to swim in cold conditions to prepare themselves for some of the sort of keynote marathon swims that they're aiming for later in the year, maybe. But you still need to prepare to swim 9 miles in potentially quite cold water. So and and that's you said you had some people from Hawaii and they don't have that much opportunity. But how would you advise people to go about preparing themselves for a long swim in cool water?
Well, to acclimate, and there's a lot of good information out there about acclimating, but you just have to be cold all the time. Like you just try and make yourself cold. You shower with cold water. You drive your car to work. You have the windows down. Um, Open water swimming in a lot of places, it just gets too cold to be in the water that long. I think anything below, oh, yeah, I mean, there's certain temperatures that you just don't have to get to do the English Channel. Like they even, I think, recommend against going below 55. Um, so if you don't have any options, I'll tell you what I did. I mean, I'm in Arizona. It's burning up hot here. Like it's the closest thing to burning hell. But I had a aluminum horse trough that was the length of my lower body, and I would fill it with water. I'd have 70 pounds of ice, and I'd put the bags of ice in there, and then one by one, and I'd have a temperature gauge, and I'd have a table set across the trough. I'd have an iPad. I could watch a show, and I would follow that temperature and get it right to where I wanted it, right at that 58 to 61, 62 point. And the way I would adjust the temperature is by opening bags of ice. Um, and I think if you get in there and get 45 minutes in, you're in good shape because it's that first 5 to 7 minutes that are the toughest. And
Yeah, so there's some creativity needed, perhaps depending on your circumstances, to to make it, you've got to be inventive, make do, improvise. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would travel to San Francisco to swim in the bay there because to me, that was like, these are the Navy SEALs of swimmers. These guys are so tough. Like, they're no wetsuit and some amazing swimmers have come out of there. And so before I did any of my big races or big channel swims, I would go there like to get my head on and get right and have a really cold swim and then and then enjoy San Francisco. So it's just being cold all the time. Like how many opportunities do you have to be cold? And now there's even these cryo machines. There's one at my gym where you sit in it and it just freezes you. And so if that's your thing.
Okay. Elaine, what's coming on the chat while Kent's been talking here? What can you pick up and ask from the chat there?
Well, there has been a lot of back and forth about the concept of cold. And Greg has just posted here that it's a relative term, which is absolutely correct. For some people, 16 C or 62 Fahrenheit, that's beautiful for like Scotland, whereas in Arizona, that would be probably considered chilly. So, um, I guess the question that follows from that, is where beyond the training for it, physically, what about the mental, like getting your mind around that variability and the unpredictability of temperatures? Like you might think you're going to a swim that's going to be 16 C, and then you get there and it's 14. What advice do you have for swimmers to kind of get their mind ready for the unexpected in that way?
Yeah. My approach is every time it was like too windy or too cold or too choppy, that's what I embrace the most. I mean, who doesn't want to just swim in flat glass where it's perfect temperature? That's not, to me, the adventure is when it's winds in your face, when it is cold, when you do get the unexpected. I mean, we were at Canyon Lake, and Elaine, this might have been your year, where uh, the water was sucking back. They were swimming against a flow that was really not even, it would take an Olympic swimmer to swim past it. People were kind of running around this fast rapid. That was an unexpected for the swimmers, and it was a little bit of an unexpected thing for me. It happened to me once before, but it's those unexpected times that you go in, and when I say go in, go all in and embrace it and say, this is what training is all about. This is exactly why I'm here. So when I'm in the English Channel and it's howling and it's cold and I just got bit by a jellyfish, in our case, it could be a rattlesnake, I'm good. Like I'm fine and I can do this thing. And then as you embrace and pass those hurdles, you're stronger. You're mentally stronger. Uh, I don't know how else you get mentally stronger than overcoming hardships.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you mentioned the R word, rattlesnakes. I know that is a perpetual fear for a lot of people who are interested in SCAR. How likely is a swimmer to encounter a rattlesnake during a SCAR swim?
It's we've had it one lake out of all the swims we've had. So uh, I didn't even really know rattlesnakes swam, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I haven't worked at the zoo, but like, and even my friends that have been at the lakes for years, like, we just didn't think they swam. And then we're like, is that a swimming rattlesnake? I'm like, and this was at the finish, like it landed on the finishing buoy. It's like, that's not a good optic. This is terrible. And for me, I just kind of embraced it. I'm like, yeah, awesome. Like the ocean has sharks and we got rattlesnakes. This is cool. Um, I is it a worry? Is it a concern? Sure, it's out there. I mean, could you get bit by a shark on a swim? Sure, you could. But is it going to happen? Is it likely? No. I mean, if it were likely, we wouldn't do the swim. It'd be the liability, it'd be too crazy. But floating reeds look a lot like a rattlesnake, and we have boats on the lake to seek that out. But what's funny when you talk about old swims, it's those challenges you talk about. It's the craziness that happens about. It was just a swim, and yeah, I swam fast. It was great. It was cool. I left. No, man, I want swimming rattlesnakes. I want like a micro burst to come. I want the water to be like Neptune's coming out. Um, and that's fun. It's fun for me, and I hope it's fun for the swimmers. I think it is.
Yeah, it absolutely.
Otherwise, just go to Palm Beach and swim in the pool.
Agreed. Another question that has come through, given, Arizona's climate and the constant beating sun, what do you recommend swimmers do to grease up or protect themselves from sunburn?
Well, I like a baby rash cream. Mainly because I don't feel like I have to rub it off. There's not a big mess at the end like some other products. And you just look for the level of zinc oxide in this in a baby that that's a baby rash cream. That's worked for me. It's what I use. I'm not crazy about Vaseline. That can kind of direct the sun more towards you. So I know some people use that, and people react differently. Like I never greased my whole back, but I'm tan. I was born here and my skin can handle it. And then I'll get somebody, like Mo Siegel from New York, and he just cooks like a lobster.
Yeah, he does get really red on swims. I've been there.
Yeah.
Um, we've got a couple of questions too that have come in regarding nutrition. First off, do you have a favorite type of nutrition that you use for long swims? And then additionally, do you have any, guidelines or advice regarding nutrition?
My biggest advice on long swims for nutrition is dial in the least amount that you're going to need uh, for the swim. And the way you do that is how far can I go by just drinking water? I think water is completely underestimated. We get marketed all this crazy stuff as ultra athletes. And, when you start adding up the calories, it's like, wow, would I really eat, 8 Big Macs to do this swim? If that's the level of caloric intake. But I was in doing the Border Buster Phil White swim up in Vermont, and I went all water, and I just had a really tough time near the end. And so I had gone to the point of, okay, you're going to need more than just water. And so a series of swims like Scarf presents that opportunity. How do I dial in my swims? For me, I'm every 30 minutes. I have a lot of different bottles, different shapes. They're all 8 ounces, and I was taught to, it's down the hatch and go. Like I want my stops to be like 10 seconds, 8 seconds. I'm not going to have a long conversation with my paddler. It might be like, hey, thank you. Hey, you're doing great. How's the stroke look, or something quick. Um, but for me, I don't use a giant like hydro and like, okay, I'm going to take 4 big sips. Or if I were to do that, I'd take 8 ounces. I'd be like, okay, how many sips does 8 ounces take? I mean, you can really geek out on feeds, right? Like, uh, and then one swimmer in particular, Courtney from Virginia, great swimmer, has done the triple double. I was the observer on her first Catalina swim, and she's a lawyer, and I respect her knowledge and wisdom, but she gave us like an 8-page feeding manual that was single spaced, and I was just like, holy smokes! And her husband's on the boat, and there's a big crew, and then she came to Scar. We got along great. We've had dinner, and the last time she was in Arizona, I said, hey, Courtney, I got to ask you something. What's your feeding plan like now? She goes, very simple. It's one paragraph. I said, good for you. Good for you. So don't overthink it. You got to feed. You got to get your right calories. But the worst thing is too much food, because you just get sick, you throw up, and then it's a mess. So eat less.
Yeah. And it's funny, I've also observed for Courtney when she did Plymouth to P-Town here in the Boston area. And this was 2012 or 13. So this was early in her career. And also I was like, oh my God, girl, you got so much food on this boat. It was so complicated.
No, no. I mean, so she had like a buffet, like it's like
It was
swim
a
speeds. It's
buffet.
like it was like, okay, hey, here's a hydro. It's like Courtney had like 7 hydros, like depending on what she wanted. And then I remember one time she said, Matt, where's my ginger ale? I'm like, what? And that was like, it was funny. I mean, we had a great time, and she's a great swimmer. It was fun to see her evolution.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll be wrapping up shortly. I'd actually like to ask everyone here a question. Is there maybe if you could just put a thumbs up or something in the chat if you think that doing SCAR at one point in your life is something you'd like to do. I'm sure Kent would like to see that. Or maybe two thumbs if it's something you've got a serious intention of doing, and one thumb if it's like a someday maybe I'd like to do it if I get the right if the stars line up for me or something like that. Um, and then did it, Elaine? I think you asked everyone to say whether we're quite curious to see where everyone's from. And we
All
know
over the
most of the
place.
outdoor summer audiences in the UK, but I think when we do these events, we often get people dialing in from around the world.
Sure,
So
yeah, we've got people from all over the UK, Dorset, Northumberland, West London, Brighton, but then we've also got overseas folks. We've got San Diego and Oregon and Vancouver, Canada, and Stowe, Massachusetts, which is just right up the street from me. And we've got Northern Vermont. The Yankauskis ladies are here from Vermont.
Oh, I'd
Yeah,
Paula.
yeah. Barnegat, New Jersey. Shout out to hometown there, Mr. Tom Sullivan. He and I were both lifeguards on Long Beach Island once upon a time. So there's people from literally all over the world.
and is there anybody? I think there's a couple of people on here that might have done SCAR already, aren't there?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I saw Dan Simonelli clocked in. Kathy Harrington was here too, and I think she blushed really big when she got that shout out earlier. Who else? There's a couple others in here that I think. Oh, Mark Spratt, he's on.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Shout out to Iowa.
yeah. So yeah, there are several people. I've done it, so there's several of us who've done it who are here, and yeah, I personally I gave you three thumbs up in the chat because I can't wait to come back someday.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I'll tell you what, Simon, one of the things that I learned from Ned Dennison, who runs the swim camp in Ireland, is that hopefully swimmers get to that point in their career that they give back and they paddle for somebody. And Elaine's done that, Dan's done that. I mean, there's so many swimmers that have come to SCAR, swam. Sarah Thomas, she doesn't need to paddle for anybody, but she came back and paddled. And that's really where, if the sport is going to be sustainable, it's great to have somebody on the paddle that knows what you're going through. And so I'm so grateful to people like Elaine and Dan and the Durbin brothers, Lars and Eric, who hop on the paddle and help people, because that's what makes it fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's one final question just popped in the chat there. Do you have an upper age limit or a lower age limit?
Mark Spratt, how old are you? I don't. I don't have an age limit. I mean, I let people make that decision for themselves. You know, uh, they're the best judge of where they're at, and I'm on the water. I can observe how they are, and if I think they're struggling or something's a serious problem, I would say something. But I haven't had that experience. I just, we have enough eyes on the water to I want to see these guys do it. I mean, when I see somebody like Mo Siegel coming back, I don't know, how many digits he has on his age, if he's up to three digits now or not, but um, he's an inspiration to me. I mean, here's a guy who's still coming out and still coming out to do it. And, when I see a guy that's in his 70s doing it, I'm like, that's awesome, because that means I've got like at least 15 to 20 more years of swimming in me. And that makes me happy.
And someone's just asked about relays, question mark, question mark.
No. No, so I have done a relay for kids at Roosevelt, and it was a group of kids that I wanted to do the Catalina Channel as a relay. So it was a very special group. But I've had people swim in pods. If someone really has a problem and they're like, "Hey, I want to swim with this person, and we're going to share this paddler." You know, that's a difficult relationship because people swim at different paces and feeds and all of that. But if I think they're good, that's fine. But a relay, there's a lot of in and out. And if you want to do a relay, the Trans Tahoe relay and California, Nevada at Lake Tahoe is perfect for something like that. Or create your own relay. I mean, I've done relays like, around Catalina Island and Santa Barbara, over 100 miles. That's a blast. But SCAR is not the place for a relay.
And I think the question also came in about a tandem, whether you can kind of like share the swimming and the paddling, and swap over at certain points so that the swimmer becomes the paddler. And
On a case by case basis, I would evaluate that. Preferably not, because just the getting in and out of the kayak. Um, so I make those decisions on the fly. Like I said when I started, I provide the opportunity. I screen their swim application if they have a paddler. But when they get here to Arizona, I'm not a big rule guy. Like I want them to have their experience and create their experience, and I trust that they'll have a good time. I know it's difficult to do the change out. I've tried that. It's tough. Like people, they're in the middle of the lake and they're going to do a changeover, and then the whole kayak flips, and then their gears everywhere, and it could just be a disaster. Um,
yeah. Okay, well, we're out of time, and I think we've probably addressed most of the questions in the chat. We've addressed all the questions that came in, and that's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, Kent, and sharing all that experience and that advice. And I really hope you've inspired some people and given them some sort of thing they can aim for in the swimming.
well, Simon, I'm certainly very grateful for your support that's well over a decade now, and of course the crew I have. I couldn't do it without the people like the Angry Pirate, my friend Brian and Brad and Jeremy that get in the boats and help. It I don't do this by myself. I mean, I'm the one right here talking to you about it, but I've got a massive support system,
Mm.
and so thank you, and you know just keep doing it. I never know if I'm going to do it the next year. It's like kind of hit or miss, but so far we're on a good run.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for turning up. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for staying here to the end. That's really nice that the numbers kept going up throughout the talk and they stayed high to the end. So that a measure that you were engaging people and they were interested in what you had to say. And thanks Elaine for stepping in and
Yeah,
monitoring the
My
chat for
pleasure.
me. That's really,
My
really
thanks,
pleasure.
Elaine.
Yeah.
all right. I'm going to turn off recording and shut this down. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.